Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is October 16th, 2020, and this is, a lot of you know anyway, this is our weekly video. We do them every Friday. We'll look back at last week's eBay auction results from the things that we pick out every week that go into our newsletter page, some of the things from Catawiki that we grab and put in there, and some news about the global member auction pages, the subscription side of the site, what happened over on Invaluable, Live Auctioneers, things that we found, things that we picked out, what they did, and some other news of things that are going on. It's been a busy week. One of the things I had mentioned a week ago was that there seemed to be a decline of suddenly, inexplicably, of things being posted that we could find on eBay that were particularly good. And we didn't know why. It was sort of shocking. It was about a 50% decline for about 2 or 3 weeks. I was wondering what was going on. And then last week, a lot of things came back on. Maybe people were just taking time off. Who knows? But at any rate, there was some nice things on last week on the newsletter page that we found, and we'll be going over the prices in a few minutes. A couple of other little things. We added a lot of new content to the global member auction pages this week. We've updated it a few times. We forgot to make a note on the intro page that we updated it. We updated it on Sunday, and we updated it again on late Tuesday, and we updated it again just this morning on Friday to get it underway for the weekend, because I know a lot of you use the site on weekend, and we had a sort of a surge in subscriptions this week. So to all of you that did that, thank you. All right. Well, it helps pay for everything because this site's getting expensive. But at any rate, over here, let's take a look at the global member pages. This is over on Invaluable. We added a bunch of auctions in the last 3 or 4 days. You of course have the Michael sale that's coming up, and there's the Warner sale that's coming up, and several others that have appeared. A number of good sales closed this week, and some people that were using the global pages got some bargains, particularly at the Potomac Auction Company. A couple of real bargains slipped through there, and I know one of you bought one of the things there because you let me know. And this is a lot of the stuff that's over at this is the stuff that was at the Potomac sale. That we'll be taking off later today. There was some nice, this was for the export buyer. And one of the things I wanted to point out was this is also just went up on Invaluable. This is at the Warner sale. We'll get to the Potomac sale in a minute. But this thing jumped out at me. I was looking at it last night, and I wanted to talk about it this morning. It's a really nice Kangxi period lobed body teapot in famille verte. But what's interesting about it is, one is the shape. It's a bit atypical. Most of these teapots that have that squared sort of a bamboo wrap styled handle are done on square pots, typically, or rectangular pots. This is done on a lobed form one with the sort of this high domed lobed lid to it. It's a really attractive little pot. Very nice looking, and the estimate on it is very reasonable. A number of the things I saw in the water sale, they had very reasonable estimates. This is estimated at 700 to 1,200 euros, and as a lot of you know that have bought these in the past, these can sell for well over 2,000 euros. Sometimes 3,000 euros. So if you can pick this up for anywhere within that range, you got a good buyer in your hands. But always get a condition report to make sure there isn't something going on there that you can't see from the photos. But it's a nice example. And a lot of the things are good. And I don't know what the shipping deal is out of Italy, but you want to look into it. If you're going to collect online globally, you really want to familiarize yourself with the shipping issues in and out of certain countries. Certain countries, they're thought to have like Italy has this sort of a tough reputation on shipping. However, if you're buying from somebody inside of Italy and they're shipping out to you, it's not bad at all. It's stuff going in sometimes that can be in trouble, but getting things out once the auctioneer's done with it, they want to get paid. They want you happy. They know about some of the reputations of the Italian postal service, and there's a few other in Europe that aren't great. Portugal can be problematic, but the auction houses will work with you to make sure you get your property safely. And in general, I've heard good things. So don't be afraid to give it a shot. Get to know them. All right, and then this was over at the Potomac sale. This was a very good buy. A really lovely 1840s rose Mandarin punch bowl that's been mounted with ormolu, French ormolu mounts. The mounts are probably 20th century, judging by the look of them, but they're top quality. And these bronze door mounts are incredibly expensive to have done. And somebody picked this up for $1,700, which I think was an absolute steal. And this was a pretty good size object. It was 15 inches across, 21 including the handles. So it was almost 2 feet wide. This was not a small bowl like a little centerpiece. This was a big centerpiece that could go on a big dining table. Absolutely elegant and done in the style that was so popular in France during the late 19th century, mid to late 19th century. Great looking thing. And then this went through. This had a $1,000 to $1,500 estimate. It was a 15-inch platter. This was a big piece of porcelain, and it had beautiful enameling on it. And it had it looks like it has the well at one end. There's the back of it. I don't see anything wrong with it. I see a little bit of kiln grit here and there, which is perfectly fine. Doesn't make any difference. All the enamels were in great shape. The colors were bright. The layering, like through here, is very, very nice. And somebody picked this plate up for $550. And the rule I often say, just leave a bid. For heaven's sakes, leave a bid, because you can. And that rule applies to invaluable sales for the global members, or live auctioneers, or Bonhams, or Christie's and Sotheby's. It doesn't matter. Leave a bid. Take the time to leave a bid, because every once in a while you shock yourself and you get a great buy like this for this great big beautiful platter for under $600. What a good buy. All right, and then over here, here are some of the sales that have just been posted, some of the items that have just been posted that Bonhams has coming up. This is an online-only sale. They have a lot of nice things on here. We're going to look at a couple of them, but beautiful examples. And a lot of the things here are sort of estimated in the 800 to 5,000 pound range. Some things are much more than that, of course, as always, but there's some nice lots on here, and Bonhams is known for putting together lots. So, and some of their sales, if you're a dealer, you can get yourself some pretty good inventory to break up a lot to make some money, and then build on your own collection at the same time. It's a good strategy. All right, and one of the things I wanted to look at was this. This is a very nice thing. This is a Republic period Kangxi style, and Kangxi marked sort of a brush washer shaped device. It is big. It is 12 inches in diameter. All right, and has this really nicely done dragon on the interior that you really can't see. Where's see? We got to go over to the dragon. I think this is the page. There it is. Beautifully done dragon, and you'll notice on the outside is this underglaze carved roux heads, and there's another dragon running around the outside of it. This is a very nice one. And it's early Republic. This isn't a late Republic thing. This was done just after the end of the Qing dynasty, from what I can see. And the estimate is fine, $1,000 to $1,500. But this is, as I said at the beginning, this is not one of those 5-inch ones or 6-inch ones. This is a foot. That is a much different animal, okay? That's or 9.5 inches. It's a much different thing than the smaller ones. And a few weeks ago, we saw some of these turquoise brush washers on here that were from the same period, and they weren't marked. They didn't have the Kangxi mark of any kind, and they brought $500 to $800. So this is a nice example if you're a Republican porcelain collector. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was this. This is on an unreserved lot. Sotheby's has an online sale they just posted. This is not an Asian sale. And it was an unreserved sale, though, and we came across this. A very nice 6.5, 7-inch tall Kangxi period famille verte tankard with European mounts, including this very nice shell pattern, shell molded handle on the top. Good looking piece. Notice the enamels are all still in really, really nice condition. Absolutely wonderful condition from what I can see. And it has a very modest estimate, $1,500 to $2,000 with an opening bid of $50. All right. This is not a reserve sale, so it could sell for literally the opening bid. All right. I doubt that'll happen, but it's quite a thing. And everything is being sold. This is what they referred to in the old days as an absolute auction. Nothing is being held back. All right, and it's to benefit the Arnhold Foundation. It's sort of they're doing it to raise. Apparently, his property was being in his will. Or somebody's donating it to benefit this foundation. So anyway, that's what that is. And then on to this. This was something that is on the Bonham sale online, and I wanted to talk about it because it's a type of porcelain that we're getting a lot of inquiries lately because they're copying these to death. These trigrammed Celadon Ming style incense burners. They are turning up everywhere. Typically the glaze is sort of a darker bluish green than the real Long Quan examples, but some of them are very, very close. And this is what the interior of a real one should look like. This one, it has the added feature of the impressed peony pattern in the center. Often they're just plain. All right, because they have those empty areas in the middle that were not glazed. And this is what the back of one of these looks like. And you want to really pay close attention to it because on the copies, what they're doing is they're staining them with some sort of iron thing, maybe liquefied rust or something to make them, and then heating them to make them look old. But this is what a real one should look like. And you can see where it's had little nicks and dings from where it touched a tabletop or something while it was being fired. And the reason they had these blocks on the bottom was so that they could fully glaze the feet on the incense burner during the firing, so it wouldn't be resting on its feet, and that way it wouldn't scratch a nice tabletop when it was being used, because these were ritualistic, they were incense burners, and it was glazing the feet fully was just a way to make it not cause any damage when it was being used. And what happens on these original examples is that you notice the glaze is wearing off on the feet. All right, which is fairly typical, like this, and that wear is normal. What you want to do, though, if you see that type of wear, you want to look at it carefully to make sure it hasn't been abraded off, because that's what they do with some of the fakes. They wear the feet down because they know that's one of the things people look for, and if you magnify it and look carefully, you'll see that there are signs of abrasion and scraping, and not just natural sort of polishing off of the glaze from a wooden surface or being on a hard surface. All right, now let's mosey along. And this is a nice one, by the way, and we'll see how that does. The estimate on it is, I think, pretty reasonable. It is, what is it? It's like $1,500, yeah, $1,500 to $2,500, and it's a good size one. This is the one that's 12 inches wide. It's a foot wide. That's a big incense burner, and it has a very nice color. Celadons are about the color. This is has a very charming color to it. So we'll see how that does. It's a 15th century example from what I can see. And then over to the newsletter page, these, as I mentioned, these are things that we look out for each week on eBay and put on here, and we hope they do well. We know most of the sellers are at least familiar with them from over the years, over the last 10 years, and we do keep track of certain people because we know they're going to come up with things. And this is the page from last week, and the results overall were very good. One of the things I wanted to point out, this was over on Catawiki. I had talked about it last week. Was this really beautifully done Wanli plate? It wasn't an enormous one. It was around 10 or 12 inches, but the colors and drawing on this was so good because Wanli pieces can vary so wildly in their quality, but this one was beautifully done. Really, really nicely done. And I think whoever got it got a really nice buy. It sold for 550 euros. And it's 29 centimeters, so it's just about a little over 11 3/4 inches in diameter. But the quality was very good. It's always about the quality. And somebody got a nice buy on it. 550 euros plus shipping. Not bad at all. And then on to this. This was one of these a pine tree with the flying bat or a bird over it. Plates. It was Chinese, made for the Japanese market. Ming transitional period. This was sold by the Shangri-La guys over in Ceramics and Collectibles in the Netherlands. Very, very pretty, interesting plate, well-known pattern. And you'll notice on it, the way they do the rims on these, they put these little flowers around it, but they don't do them all the way around. They leave these sort of interesting empty areas just to keep it sort of visually interesting. They leave this blank. That's not a mistake. That's intentional. And you see that often on these. Sometimes they did do them all the way, but often they didn't. And this went for just $239. That's very nice. That's a very nice example. And then over here for this is a late Qing, crackle glazed, underglazed blue, but relief worked vase, very typical of these later Qing and early 20th century pieces. Nice. Let's get a good. Oh, there's the foot rim on it. Had a chip out of it. I don't care about that. But this is very much what the foot on these on the feet on one of these looks like. Here's another shot of it. Pretty typical. 1880 to about 1900, 1910, somewhere in there. And it sold for $1,394 because it was beautifully done. The underglaze blue on this is all done in relief. That's all raised work here. And then they enamel, they apply the cobalt over it. So it has a nice three-dimensional effect to it, and the shape of the vase was quite nice, and it was decent size. It was 35 centimeters tall, so about 13, 14 inches tall. But a good example, $1,394. That did well. And then onto this was this Lang Yao style late Qing baluster vase that was for sale. Nice looking pot, very typical of the late Qing examples. They had it listed correctly as 19th century, and it did have a hole in the bottom, as we've seen so many times. These things were often lamped, but you know it's a later, one of the indicators of these later Qing pieces is all this chipping around the foot that you see like this, because what happened was the glaze, when it was being put on the piece, often overflow onto the foot rims, and they end up having to chip it off because it's sort of a mess at the bottom, and the vase won't stand properly. So what they'll do is they will just go through and very carefully chip off the surplus red, and you often see polishing along here. But whenever you see that, generally assume it's a late 19th, early 20th century piece, or possibly later. The modern copies of these, you don't see this at all, and they tend to be looking like much older pieces than they are. But this was a nice one anyway. And it ended up doing pretty well. It brought $1,605, but it was fairly good size. It was 16 or 17 inches in height, and that was fine. But the color was nice. The color was good. All right, and then over here, Needleworks last week, there were some good badges up. We're going to go through some of them. This one was a nice one, an unusual sort of a cocoa brown background with the foo dog. This was not a high rank, this was not a military rank badge. This was a governmental rank badge. Nice one with the foo lion on it. Beautifully done. Nice condition overall everywhere. And somebody paid $1,336 for it because it's the color palette on it's a bit atypical, and the drawing of the foo lion I think was just so nice, and it was clearly solidly a 19th century example. It wasn't one of these 1920s pieces. Very nice. And then over here to this, pewter. I love Chinese pewter and metalworks and things like that. I think it's one of the most underappreciated arts of that whole country. They did some really great pewter work. It's often called out of Swato, because that's where a lot of it was made and exported from in the region around there. And this was a dandy little box. This was really a dandy little box. I put it in the newsletter for a reason. It had all kinds of inscriptions and writing on it. Nice quality. Had this crazy seal, circular seal on the end. It looks like a Qinlong seal. Birds, and it's not Qinlong, but it's beautifully done. There's these nice birds. It had an old repair or something going on here in the hinge. Here's the maker's mark on the bottom. Here's the interior work, and there's the top, all right, with this really cool-looking dragon on the lid of it, sort of coming out of it, going through clouds, and with his 5 claws. Just a very nice example. This wasn't a huge box, but I loved it. And it went for $632 with a little hinge damage. This was from a seller over in the United Kingdom, and but absolutely great thing. And I hope some people start to write books and learn more about Chinese pewter and their traditions, because they made some really interesting objects. It's like Tibetan silver pieces that are inlaid with turquoise and so on. They don't get a lot of attention for some mysterious reason. And I know people are collecting this stuff, and someday, hopefully, they'll maybe somehow get all this stuff written up in a good authoritative book on the topic. There has been some writing, but not nearly as much as there should be, and I hope it takes off. It's an interesting category. And then over here to this nice-looking Yongshen famille rose plate with the ascending phoenix here, and then you have the figures moving into the scene. And what's really nice about this was the way the decorator used yellow and the reds to really complement one another and really brighten up the plate. It's a very happy looking color composition. I like it a lot. And It's a small, like a shallow, semi-shallow soup bowl, and it sold for $676. Nice example. And then over here to this was this Famille Rose Mandarin vase. It was about 16 or 17 inches tall, fairly well-known type, mid-19th century, nicely done, had that ruffled porcelain rim top on it. As I recall, it had a couple of little chips to the inside, but still a big pot. And it went for $659, a perfectly reasonable price. This was a seller that's in the UK that comes and goes. She's not on here a lot. The seller name is Hazel Ford. And always nice things, though, always good things when they list things. She's been on here for years and only has 227 feedbacks because that isn't what she does full time, I suspect. And then over here to this, one of the terrific fans of the week, silver filigree with enameling, and the enamel decoration on this was just elegant. We put it in the newsletter because it just knocked me out. I thought it was a wonderful fan. And if you took the time to look at it carefully, you notice how carefully all the little petals are done, and this very, very nice clear yellow that was used, and this beautiful even blue enamels that were worked in with a sort of a bluish green accompanying it, and just touches of yellow. All these little elements add up to make this a very, very nice fan. And why we put it in the newsletter. There's a good shot of it. That's good enameling, nice and even, nicely controlled. And in the end, everybody loved it. It went for $2,888. And as we've seen in the past, sometimes these enamel fans in silver don't bring that much. They bring $600 or $800 or $1,000. But this was a particularly sweet one. I liked it a great deal. And this was the seller over in Spain, Vendi Classic. They do not sell a lot on here, but everything they sell seems to be pretty interesting. They sell lots of fans. All right, and then over here to this sort of lotus-mouthed garlic form Famille Noir vase with Famille Verte decoration. This was clearly a late 19th century example. Here's a picture of the bottom. You see little iron spots and staining on it and so forth. And there was a bit of rubbing to it on the body, but nonetheless, very, very nice. And it ended up selling for $1,125. And this vase itself is not particularly in that group, but there is a group of Kangxi Famille Noir vases that have been around, and there's been a lot of arguing about it. And what they finally decided was that basically, outside of a few beakers, every Famille Noir vase of that's purportedly of the Kangxi period is a redecorated white example. And what I mean by that is that these big vases, these big Famille Noir vases that are 20, 25, 30 inches tall, what they would do is they would take a regular Famille Verte or Wukai decorated Kangxi vases with white grounds, and in the late 19th, early 20th century, late 19th especially, they would actually scrape the white glaze off and reglaze them in black to create Famille Noir because it was so popular in the West. And that's why just a few weeks ago, one of the big auction houses had a whole bunch of these, and they were all Kangxi vases but decorated in the 19th century, and institutions are slowly getting rid of them. There's a lot of them in major museums, and they've all come to accept the fact that none of them are authentic, basically. None of them. So they're politely saying they're Kangxi period, but decorated later, and if you've seen those descriptions, that is why. All right? There's nothing wrong with them. They're very attractive, but they're they've been altered just a little bit. All right, now over to this. This was a nice thing. This was that Republic vase that we looked at last week when it first went up, and I just thought it was wonderfully decorated. And of course, it has this apocryphal Qianlong mark on the bottom. It's not Qianlong, but pretty obviously a latter Republic example. But top quality, top workshop quality, all the way through. The flowers on it were beautifully done. Here's another shot of it. You notice the layering and the shading, very finely done with the infamous black birds. And this sort of interesting grayish blue framing around it with vines creeping in and out of it. And it has sort of has this interesting glaze on the surface. Try to zoom in on it a little. Let me see here. There it is. You see it? All this white work. This white, if you didn't look at this carefully, you would have missed this. This raised white enamel work all made into the body and beautifully done all the way around. This was a heck of a little pot. And it's not terribly old. It's probably 70, 80 years old. But at any rate, sold for $5,049 just because I think it was just so pretty. And this was a seller down in New York at Long Island. Handy's Antiques had that. All right, and then over here, Chinese rug. Nice example, dark brown. They call it Tibetan. I really don't think it is, but it is Tibetan influence, I guess. But anyway, it's a nice dragon rug. Very, very well done. They also did these with silver threads and silk for the imperial court. Very, very similar. It was a very, very popular pattern that you see on imperial carpets. And Chinese rugs and carpets, I think, are also woefully underappreciated on the market compared to other things, throne covers and all that great stuff. They go through routinely, fairly inexpensively, and very few of them around, actually, because they were so susceptible to wear. But this sold for $1,325, which was a perfectly fair price. It was early to mid-20th century, but very nice quality. Again, and remember, rugs, you're not going to find hardly any Chinese rugs that were made without really looking and knowing what you're doing. They were made prior to about 1870. All right, 98% of the Chinese rugs, carpets, and so forth that are on the market are all early 20th century or late 19th century. Occasionally, you'll see one that's older, but it's not often. It's not often because rugs wore out and they were simply thrown away. They were simply thrown away. And then over here to this sort of large opium tray, I guess is what you'd call it, but beautifully done pewter and then inlaid with brass and roux heads running around it and this nice wave pattern that you see on porcelain all the time running around the outside. Here's a picture of the back. It's obviously old, obviously been used. Lots of legitimate wear all over it with these figural landscapes and balustrades and palm trees and pine trees and rocks. And the horse at the bottom with his sleepy eye, and love that horse. Anyway, it sold for $539, which was, I think, a very nice price. It was a good example, a nice atypical example, and clearly 19th century, I think. And then on to this, the silver cane handle. Cane collectors is a whole other category. I don't know how much of you know about this. This is not a big piece of Chinese silver, but cane collectors go wild for these things. They absolutely love Chinese silver-mounted canes, and it's a highly specialized area of collecting, the cane world. And there's some spectacularly expensive pieces. But at any rate, this was a nice-looking silver cane handle mounted on probably elmwood or something, and it ended up selling for $501. But beautifully done, and it evidently was not marked, which is kind of unusual, but they didn't always mark them. This was from a seller over in the UK. Vase gets these things. They have a good eye for metal, and I think that was a perfectly reasonable price. But you may look at it and wonder why, a big bowl brings about the same price at times. And I said, because it's a cane. And people that buy canes will pay a lot for the most minor elements of a small handle, just because it's rare. All right, and then over here to this very nice Swato Crackle Glaze Cobalt plate that was on there. Unfortunately, a lot of people, I actually wrote the owner of this, say, well, how big is this thing? Because he had a photograph of it and with a ruler laying across it. If you're a seller on eBay, don't do this and skip putting in the dimensions in the listing itself, because that is almost unreadable. It does say 15 right there, but you better have 20/20 vision and a big screen to see it. If I don't know why sellers shoot themselves in the foot like this, but if you have a nice thing, write the dimensions in. Write the dimensions in. This guy was a good guy, but I actually wrote him and said, well, what's the dimensions of it? And he actually sent me a copy of the picture that he had in the listing, which I'd already seen and couldn't read it. Don't do that. Make it friendly. Make it easy for the buyer to like your product. All right? Put in a description also. I've noticed lately a lot of sellers that have antiques. These are legitimate antiques. All they're putting they're putting up the picture and they're just throwing in the description any hairlines and the dimensions, and that's it. No information about the piece, no effort. Write in what you know or what you can find out about a piece to get it, to get the most money you can if you're selling it. All right, but anyway, this went for $609, which I think was pretty cheap. It was a 15-inch Swato, crackle glazed, and was a nice, somewhat unusual pattern. And I think it would have done better if he'd dated it properly. It wasn't 18th century, obviously. Maybe he didn't know. But at least, put the dimensions in, for Pete's sakes. Jesus. All right, and then over here to this. Sorry for grousing. Is this nice pair of late Qing, early Republic cinnabar lacquer jars with their covers on stands. They were not in perfect condition. They had a little wear and chipping around the top up here. You can see it. But they were fairly nicely done, and the stands were nice. Often they don't have stands. They were marked China on the bottom, so you know they were done after 1895. Here it is. Probably, late Qing, early Republic, the very end. But nicely done. These were perfectly nice, and they were good size, and I liked how they sort of flattened out the carving and sort of gave it this interesting relief pattern. Very decorative with this nice lotus top on it and everything. And they went for $1,237 because they're very decorative. And they were, as I said, they were about a foot tall, which is a good size to put up on a mantle or something. And nice color. You can turn if you don't like the little damage to the lid, you just turn it around and put it back to the wall. But anyway, nice looking things. And this was Handy's Antiques had these. And then over here to this loomed piece of Chinese silk. This is not an extremely rare piece of silk, but very attractive. And they did these on these sort of looms, not too dissimilar from jacquard looms, but beautifully made. Nice piece that was based on an 18th century example. It was early 20th century silk. There it is, but nice quality. And look at this. Somebody got a great buy on this. $54. There you go. Who says you can't collect Chinese art? This was a perfectly nice thing. It was a great hanging on a wall. They called it a throne or cushion cover. It may have been meant more likely as a hanging. But at any rate, this was Handy's had this, and this was a nifty buy. All right, and you do not have to be rich to collect Chinese and Asian art. You just have to, be careful and look carefully and leave a bid whenever you can, and you can build up a pretty interesting little collection on a modest budget. You just have to take the time to do it. All righty. Now let's take a look and see what's happening that's coming up this week. There's a few things coming up. There's a number of things on eBay. We're just going to look at some of the things on Catawiki, though, in this case. One of them is this. This is listed on Catawiki, and we ran our scan of the Catawiki site last week to include this. It'll be in there this week. It hasn't closed yet. It's this nice Swato plate. For some reason, it's turning up in the Japanese category and not in the Chinese category. From what we could see. And it closes in 1 day, 21 hours. It is Swato. They have listed it properly, but the categorization in the search is put it into Japan for some reason. It's only up to $75. All right. And there is a reserve on it. I don't know what it is, but you might take a shot at that. You might find yourself getting a good buy. And also this closes in a couple of days. Is a really nice late Edo period, mid to late Edo period, Mito school mixed metal Suba. But I really like this one. I like the demon at the bottom. Let's see if we can get a better shot of it here. No. Maybe they didn't include one. There it is. You can see it a little better there. This very nice figure with these gold dragonflies and flowers running around. It's just a great thing. Nice piece of iron, lots of wear to it. It's up to 350 euros, and we'll see what it does, but it seems not to have a reserve on it. And it's a nice thing. Subas. There's a lot of Subas on Catawiki. If you're a collector of Subas, just sort of go across the board and leave bids on all the ones you like, because the prices are very uneven. And you could two similar ones. One might go for 400, and one that's very close kissing cousin might go for 150. All right. They also have on there is this nice piece of katani right here, beautifully done, and it looks a bit like Satsuma, but it's actually katani ware, and it's up to 240 euros. No, excuse me, it already closed. It sold for 240 euros. That was a good buy on that nice foot. Look at that. All right, if you're a katani buyer, get yourself over to Catawiki. And then this is still up. Is this nice late Meiji period? It could be early Taisho. I didn't really look at it that carefully. I just love the shape of it. It's done with rice stalks. They call them rice spikes. A vase is about 10 inches tall. It has no reserve, and it's up to 470 euros. It closes in 2 days. But this is a nice one. They've put it down pretty confidently as Meiji period, but a nice piece of bronze, very unusual. That's a very complicated bronze to do, by the way, if you've taken the time to look at it. That's not an easy thing to cast with all these little details and things. Very tricky. And then over here to this is a Chinese famille rose plate that's up. If you like 18th century famille rose, this is a nice plate. And it is good size, too. It's not small. It's funny because this pattern is most often seen on fairly small plates and bowls, 4, 5, 6, 7 inches. This thing is 37 centimeters, so it's about 15 inches in diameter. And it's much bigger than it looks. All right, it's visually a little bit deceiving. There it is. This is very, very pretty. Here's a side of it. That's a big piece of porcelain. All right. Turn it around. I love how they do that. But at any rate, it is up to $246. Closes on Sunday. But if you like these things, it's sort of a kissing cousin to the famous 18th century lotus, the pink lotus plates. This is sort of along the same idea, but it has this outer rim that you've often seen on 18th and 19th century porcelain. But this center, I think, is quite unusual. I think that's nice, and it's big. It's a good-sized piece. All right, they call it Ben Krong. I don't know why they call it Ben Krong. Maybe they found a comparable for it. Doesn't look it to me. I think it's Chinese, but regular Chinese. At any rate, that's a nice thing. And that's about it for the week. If you enjoy our videos, please do subscribe and leave a comment and visit us over at Bidamount.com and let us know what you think. All right, what you want to see more of. Okay, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you all next time. We're working on a couple of other videos. We're going to do a thing on the Rob Michael sale that's coming up, go over a few of the highlights there that we like, and have a look at the last of the Sotheby sales. We have all the prices and everything put aside. We just didn't have the time to put it all together this week with so much going on. This was their Chinese fine works of art, those wonderful blue and white pieces. We're going to talk about those because they did very, very well. All right. Have a wonderful weekend and see you next time. Bye-bye.